Welcome. My name is Charles Sine. Welcome to our workshop, another Saturday at the workshop. Today, as I have been introducing over the week, we're going to talk about a very, very important topic called laboratory diagnostics. Most people don't understand it. Most people don't like it. Most people are not even aware of it. It is really at the core of any intervention. So it's a very elaborate topic. It is a very important topic. And as the Bible says, my people suffer from the lack of knowledge. So the knowledge is here, so you need to know it. It is nobody's fault if you don't know it. The knowledge is available, so you need to know it. So I ask people simple things like, what is your blood pressure? I don't know, but my doctor said it was fine. What is your cholesterol level? I don't know, but my doctor said it was fine. What is your glucose level? I don't know, but my doctor said it was fine. I guess the doctor owns your body. It's your body. When your car runs out of gas, do you ask the mechanic, does the mechanic have to call you and say, your car is running out of gas, you need to put some gas? Or does your mechanic have to call you, that's why the modern cars have a service line. You need to service this car. But unfortunately, God didn't give us a service line for the servicing of our body. So we just keep using it until it dies. So we use it with dysfunctions like, yeah, I have problems with sleep, but it's okay. I poo like once every 2 days, but it's okay. I normally have diarrhea, but it's okay, right? So we are sent all these signals, but we ignore them because we're really smart, because we think we're healthy. Until then, there's a big problem, then we cry. They said I have cancer. Cancer takes 20 to 30 years to show up. So for 30 years, you were ignoring the signals. That is really at the heart of diagnostics. What is diagnostics? Trying to pick up what I call strong and weak signals. We're scanning and we pick up a strong signal like what? High blood pressure. It's a strong signal of a big problem that is developing. High cholesterol, it's a big signal. What is a weak signal? Things like constipation, it's a weak signal. Things like diarrhea, it's a weak signal. Things like UTI, it's a weak signal. Things like I cannot sleep, it's a strong signal. So there are strong signals and there are weak signals, and we're going to talk about it today. So stop taking supplements when you don't know why you're taking the supplements. People just want to buy supplements. Oh, I take fish oil. Then I say, why? Well, somebody said fish oil is good for me. Who said that? You must know why you're taking fish oil, and you must know the quality of the fish oil you're taking. If not, you're stupid, right? Like people who buy expensive car and go to roadside mechanics for service, right? Isn't that stupid? You buy a Porsche and you go fix it on the roadside. No, when I drove a Porsche, I take it to the Porsche garage, and what do? They plug it into the computer and they run the diagnostics. And they do what they call a 120-point diagnostics. It's expensive, but that's why I drove that car for 12 years and I did 270,000 miles and the car never broke down because I serviced the car properly. Do you understand? So don't buy expensive car and service it by the roadside. The expensive cars have a diagnostic architecture. And since God gave you a wonderful body, which he calls the temple, right? Treat it with respect, like a luxury car. So let's go on this journey of diagnostics. Really a very important centerpiece of our intervention strategy. I have got a lot of feedback that I go too fast, that the subjects I open are very technically difficult, Yeah, God created a difficult architecture. You have to learn it. If you want to choose to be lazy, then you will die. Lazy. Learn it. It's the architecture that God created, and it is yours. So put your head down and learn it. So today, in the live, I have attached 3 documents. A picture of this whiteboard, because people have complained they can't see the whiteboard well. Number 2, I've attached 2 very important research papers. One is the hallmark of aging. It's a very important paper that everybody needs to read to understand aging and what causes aging. The second paper is the hallmark of cancer. You all need to read what drives cancer. When you have knowledge, you suffer less. When you have knowledge, you can take action, and actions can create habits. Very simple, right? Okay, let's begin. At the very beginning, what are the causes of chronic illness? You need to know that. This is why we all get sick. Number 1, because we age. Read that paper on the hallmark of aging. Aging causes chronic illness. Why? Because our organs and cells degrade. It's like you buy a new tire, you use it, it degrades, you have to replace the tire. That chronic illness comes with use, right? Number 2, infections. Every time you have an infection, it leaves a residue and an impact. You can never clean your infections 100%. That's why you try not to get the infection. But if you get it, we want to get rid of it as the best ways that we can. And antibiotics do not clear your infections properly, because the bacteria is not stupid. They have becoming smarter than the antibiotics. The more antibiotics you may take, the more the bacteria builds resistance. So it's a stupid idea, right? And I know people love it because it's quick, but it's a very bad solution long term. Allergens. We have a lot of dust, mite, and things that are irritating to us, whether they are food allergies or what kind of allergies that we have, triggers and causes chronic issues with our immune system. Nutrients. Most people don't eat well. Very few people eat well. If I can show you the chart of the deficiencies for the basic RDA in the culture, whether it's vitamins, minerals, or some of the other substitutes. What's the biggest one? B12, vitamin D, vitamin C. Nobody takes enough vitamin C. You should be taking between 2,000 and 4,000 units a day. Most people don't. Or they don't eat all the vegetables they need to eat, or all the fruits and all the things that they need. Nutrients, the body needs nutrients, not calories. Nobody gets enough of it. And the cells have to compensate for the lack of nutrients. And what is that compensation? They degrade their performance. Toxicity. Air, water, food, cream, everything brings toxicity into our bodies. Stress. I love that one. We love stress. Modern man likes to worry about our children, about our grandchildren, about President Trump, about Obama, about Hillary, about what else? COVID-19, right? We love to stress, and the more you're stressed, the more you're prone to chronic illness. So we're going to answer some of those questions. Then the last one, your DNA. Because if you don't live a good life, you drink, you smoke, and you do all those nonsense, and you die early, your genes have already been transformed with what we call epigenetics, and that's what you're going to give your children. So if you marry somebody who is an alcoholic, they're going to pass that gene to your children. Or somebody who has drugs and does all of that, you're going to pass that genetic weakness So that's why every time you go to the doctor, they ask about your family history. So it is always important that you know your family history. And as I was telling the story the other day, a friend of mine, he's 40 years old, he found out just last year that his father wasn't really his father. And it was at the doctor's office. The doctor says, "Oh, we took blood from your dad, but it's not the same. I guess you need to go run your DNA." So you can imagine the interesting conversation he had with his mother. But why is that important? Because you may not really understand your family history, and so you'll be taking certain risks. So these are the 7 things that cause chronic illness, and we're all exposed to it. None of us does it really good. It's really challenging, especially if you live in Western culture. These 7 things cause these 10 clinical imbalances in our bodies. We've tried to bring them together so people can actually understand these clinical imbalances. There are 10 of them. So let's walk through them so you get a clear sense. The biggest one that kills all of us, especially women, cardiometabolic. It has to do with our inflammation, our triglycerides, our glucose metabolism, all those things that are at the source, at the heart, at the center of chronic illness, are cardiometabolic issues. High blood pressure, cholesterol, all of that, very, very challenging. And most of us inherit that also as part of family history. Then our immune imbalances, because when you also have infections and toxicity issues, then you have immune complications and challenges. GI, which is the big one, the gastrointestinal challenges. Most of us have GI issues, especially if you don't eat fiber, you don't take prebiotics or fiber, you don't take probiotics, you don't take digestive enzymes. You will have a lot of issues as we grow older. If you're not stooling twice a day, soft stool, number 3 or number 4, you have a GI issue. And it's something that it's a clear, strong signal because the GI tract is really central to our immune system. So that's a strong signal. If you're not pooing well every day, there's a strong signal saying something is wrong and you have a compromised immune system. It's very important. Musculoskeletal, pain. That's the biggest challenge that we all have. Issues of pain, stress, big problem with stress, issues with circulation, clinical imbalance issues with circulation, detox, the toxicity issue that really causes a lot of complications, cognitive issues, brain, Alzheimer's, depression, all the things that rage around us, and then hormones, the big one, again for women. So we have those 10 areas, and those are the signals that we need to identify through diagnostics, right? So when we do diagnostics, we're trying to read these signals. It's like a meter. We're trying to read where is your hormones? Where are your cognitive? What is your toxicity level? Where is your circulation? Where is your energy performance? What are your stress levels, right? We're trying to read the signals on those imbalances. If you don't know them, then you don't know what's going on with your body. You have no idea. And therefore, and if doctors don't run those labs, then they're guessing. And guessing is very dangerous. When I take the Porsche car for service, they don't guess. The first thing they do, they plug it into the computer and run the diagnostic test. And once they run that, then what happens, they get results, and then we use those results for our intervention. So now that we're talking about that, we're going to talk about some of the biomarkers that we run for diagnostics. So if you're taking supplements and you haven't run your diagnostics, then you're making a big mistake for 3 big reasons. Number 1, you do not know the clinical imbalances that you have. that came from this. And how do you address clinical imbalances? With what we call optimal nutrition, right? Not every menopausal woman has the same hormonal levels. So the intervention with hormones is different for every menopausal woman. It's very important. That's what we call optimal nutrition. Secondly, everybody, based on what we call personalization, has different levels of even the core vitamins and minerals. So we need to make sure that we balance those at the appropriate level. Number three, for some people genetically, they cannot optimize certain supplements. Because I have the MTHFR mutation, my body does not manage folate metabolism very well. So I need to take methyl B12. I didn't know that until I ran my diagnostics. So you can take B12 all you want. If you have that mutation, your body doesn't do anything with it except you take the methyl B12. That's it. You cannot know that except you do the diagnostics. So don't try and be smart because your friends are taking B12. I need to take that too, when you're not sure. Let's look at something like fish oil. We all need different levels of it. And one of the biggest challenges today is the balance or the ratio between omega-3 and omega-6. And that is a very important balance. That's a very important balance. That balance between omega-3 and omega-6. And it's very different for all of us. Therefore, the amount of omega-3 that you need to take for each person is very different based on your diet and based on how you eat and what your genetics are and what you're exposed to. So let's look at some of our really big basic tests. So one of the most important tests, these two tests are blood tests. And Boston Heart Diagnostic is the most comprehensive blood panel that we run. And this is dealing with extracellular. It's looking at things that are in your bloodstream. And it's looking at 4 critical things. It's looking at your overall metabolics. Mostly it's looking at how you do sugar management. Secondly, it's looking at all the inflammation signals. What are inflammation signals? It would tell them how your body is responding to infections and other things. It's also looking at some of the underlying genetics like MTHFR. And also it's looking at your lipid panel, which is a very important issue, and it's looking also at your blood count. So very important thing that you need to run. The panels that most doctors run is not this extensive. And most people have cheap, lousy insurance that does not actually cover a very extensive sets of tests. Most doctors and most insurances run diagnostics that are not enough. If you're 20, they could be enough. But by the time you're 35, 40, it is not enough. So it is really important that at least once in your life, you run a complete panel. People say it's expensive. It's $600. And what is $600 compared to your handbag, your shoes, and all of that? The second blood test that we run is also really critical. This is the intracellular blood test. And what this test tells us is how well your cells are absorbing the nutrients that you take. You'll be shocked. A lot of people in their blood have enough nutrients, but inside their cells, they don't have enough. And if the nutrients are not getting into your cell, then they're useless. They're being excreted. So the absorption issue is a very important issue because the absorption issue is also going to help with the dose that we give you, right? So if, for example, you are taking 2,000 CUs of vitamin C, but we look inside your cell and there's nothing, we need to increase the dose and help with more absorption. The amount in the cell is the critical amount. The amount in your bloodstream is not. It's really important people understand that. So if you don't know that, You're just buying supplements, taking them, and it's going out. You're wasting money. You're draining money because you're not taking the right amount. Or you're taking it, but it's not enough. Do you understand? It's really important that you understand how well your body has nutrients and how well your body is absorbing nutrients. Hi, Una. Grab a seat. How are you?
Good.
Good to have you. Thank you. Yeah. And so those are the blood tests. That is really our baseline test that we require every patient to take, or every of our customer who comes in. Why is that? It gives us a comprehensive understanding of all the signals that we're looking at. Like I said again, when I take a Porsche car to the Porsche garage and they connect it to the computer, they run the 120-point inspection, and that tells them everything that needs to be fixed on that car. A lot of modern cars now have signals, right? We call them strong or weak signals. Those are the guidance. That's what we need to then do our intervention. The second most important test that we encourage all women to do, and men, is our hormone test. Hormones are like the conductors of life. They are like the chefs in the kitchen or the conductor for the orchestra. When your hormones are out of whack, it doesn't matter what you do, you're going to be feeling lousy. And so we look at some critical sets of hormones, as I taught last week. Last week I was talking about progesterone, about estrogen and estrogen metabolism. So we look at estrogen levels, we look at testosterone levels, we look at progesterone level, we look at cortisol, we look at DHEA, we look at pregnenolone. All these levels are critical because it tells us in the overall biochemistry of your hormones whether you're providing enough signals to the hypothalamus and the pituitary to produce some of the key drivers of the hormones, which are the LH and FSH. When those are released from the brain, they are the ones that trigger the testes and the ovaries to produce the right amount of hormones. Those hormones are then converted to other forms. So the amount of E2 estradiol and the amount of testosterone that's left in the bloodstream is what again triggers the brain. We need more or we need less. When that cycle is not working, you're screwed up. And what is shocking is what happens to women at menopause. Everything drops to zero for most women. And that's why it's important that you find out for yourself, because it's a transition from being in menstruation to perimenopause into menopause. And that's why a lot of women go crazy. They don't understand what's going on. They're irritable, they're depressed, they cannot sleep. So lots of different things because the hormone architecture has gone dysfunctional. So testing that and getting the right balance and then the right intervention is really very important. So that's the second mandatory set of tests. We think it's important for you to get the proper signals. Nutrients, hormones, then the third important one, we want to look at your stool. What is your stool going to tell us? A very, very important set of things. Number one, do you have the right constitution of bacteria in your stomach? In your overall gut, stomach, small intestines, colon, do you have the right diversity? Very, very important in the absorption and excretion process. You must have the right. What about your gut integrity? A lot of people suffer from leaky gut. They say leaky gut, leaky brain. If your gut is leaking, bacteria is going into your bloodstream with viruses and they're going to your brain. That's what triggers a lot of mental issues. So if your gut lining is not good, that's a problem. So if you don't run those diagnostics, we really cannot know, and therefore we cannot intervene with the right nutrients to do the gut repair and address. That's why, as part of our basic formula for anybody above 45, we give the RDA, which is the recommended daily allowance. We give extra fish oil. We give extra probiotics. We give extra fiber. And we give extra enzymes, digestive enzymes. We think that is a basic formula that everybody should take every day. That comprehensively at least will allow you to meet your basic nutrient requirements. We have a lot of other tests. This is the big one in America, the mercury test. You'll be shocked the levels of mercury that people have in their system. This is a significant trigger for cancer and for a lot of other chronic illness. So this mercury test will tell us, and then we have chelation and other therapies to reduce it. How do you get toxicity? Everywhere. The air, the water, the food, the creams, the lipstick, from everywhere. Mercury is present everywhere, and it's a very important trigger for a lot of diseases for men and women. We have two vendors for that. We have doctor's data and we have Quicksilver. We have other diagnostics that are specialized for cancer. So these diagnostics, lots of them. Like I said, we generate close to 500 clinical biomarkers. It's important that you have the data. When you now have the data, it gives you two things. You now know what you need to fix, and you now know what you need to monitor. So we recommend that people take a 5-year roadmap to get their health under control. We have 3 key strategies for doing that. Prevention. I'm going to stop here and go to something and then come back to this. Why are we doing all this stuff? Because we want these outcomes. Everyone wants a long and healthy life. What do we mean by long and healthy life? So there's a lot of research where we looked at centenarians. These are people who lived up to 100 years, which is what most of us want to do. Yeah, some of us may not want to, but for those people who want to live a long, healthy life, being a centenarian is like the objective that we want to achieve. In my culture, as my grandfather died at 102, it was a big celebration of a blessed life, right? We find out that there are 3 kinds of people who get to 100 years. We call them survivors, the people who got chronic illness but survived. It's a very important group of people, so we want to understand how they made it. What's the percentage of people who get to 100 years? Globally, it's less than 1%. Most people die in their 70s and 80s from chronic illness. 70% to 80% of the illness today is chronic illness. Only less than 1% of people get to 100 years. So it's not trivial, right? I'm sure some of us say, well, by the time I'm 80, I'm done anyway. But if you look at the graph, most people by the time they're 80 are already on 20 to 30 medications. So the question is, even if you want to die at 80, you want to die healthy in your sleep. That's the objective. So when I say long, I don't mean at just everybody to 100, but we wanted to look at those people who lived a long life and what happened. So we have the survivors. There's this very interesting group, it's a small group, people who got to 100 and never had chronic illness. And they die healthy. One day they just woke up, they die in their sleep. A beautiful death. They were never sick. Then we have people who delay chronic illness until they're like 80 or 90. That's when it shows up. So these 3 groups of people give us a sense of what we think would be some strategies on how we can live long and healthy lives. It's really important you understand that. So There's a lot that has been written about blue zones, which is where most of these people live. There are about 5 or 6 blue zones around the world where there is statistical evidence that people who live there live a very long life. It's really important that we look at. There's one here in California at Loma Linda. And who are those people? They are the Seventh-day Adventists. And they're mostly vegetarians. And so it says something about the kind of lifestyle that gives you good health, right? So now let's go back. So if you already have chronic illness, the strategy for you is reversal. It's a more aggressive strategy because we want you to survive, right? If you don't have chronic illness yet, we want to go with a prevention strategy because we either want you to escape or to delay, right? That's how it maps back to the strategy. And for people who want the very best, they can combine optimization with any of those strategies. So they really get the best of life, right? Imagine in the old days, 70, 80, 90-year-old men in my village would get married and have babies. Today, by 50, most men have erectile dysfunction. 50 to 60% of men above 40 have erectile dysfunction. In the village, those 80, 90-year-old men were still having babies. There's something to say for that. Today, more than 60 to 70% of women above 50 don't have sex because it's too painful and they don't have desire. And therefore, the question becomes, why are they married? And that's why, part of the reason why divorce rates are rising. Because without sexual intimacy, most marriages are not sustainable. Those are the clinical facts. So what do we do with it? So we created this roadmap that says the first time you come to our clinic, or in that first year, we call preparation and knowledge, you need to get educated. Because if you don't know, then I'm not going to be responsible for your life. I'm only responsible for my life. And your doctor is not responsible for your life. You are responsible for your life. So you need to get the knowledge. How are you going to get the knowledge? When we run those labs, we walk you through all the labs so that you really understand what the strong signals are saying and what the weak signals are saying and what it means overall. Some people go to the extreme. Even though they're healthy, they still wear a glucose monitor. Why is a glucose monitor so important? Most of us don't manage sugar very well, biologically and genetically. What do I mean by managing sugar? It is really at the core of chronic illness, our ability to metabolize glucose. It's at the core of health. And most people, when we put sugar into them, it takes about 3 or 4 hours for the sugar to get out of the blood and for it to attain its right level. For some people, the minute sugar goes into their blood, it drops after 30 minutes to an hour to the normal level. Some people it takes 2 hours, some people it takes 3 hours. For those people who have blood in their sugar in their blood longer, those people have a higher incidences of chronic illness. And we all know why. So we want to find out whether you're the kind of person who any sugar, what do we mean by sugar? Rice, bread, pasta, any carbohydrate, including fruits. Any source of sugar, how does your body manage it is a critical component of health. If you don't know that, then you're just guessing. Your body needs carbohydrates. So you cannot say, I'm going to run away completely from carbohydrates, right? Because even, I hope it's not my car, because even vegetables and a lot of fruits have a lot of sugar content. So we cannot escape from not eating some level of carbohydrates. So it's really important that we understand how our body manages sugar metabolism. So that test, the glucose tolerance test, is a very, very important test as part of the diagnostics. You need to know that. So this first year, you spend building that knowledge because most Americans are ignorant about the signals that come from those imbalances. Totally ignorant. They don't understand the biochemistry. They don't understand how the body digests. They don't understand how the body absorbs. They don't understand what cholesterol is. Most people think cholesterol is a bad thing. It is not. It is just how well your body carries, transforms, and manages cholesterol. Cholesterol is critical for the hormone architecture and also for brain content. So cholesterol is not a bad thing. That's been a bad science. It's like hormones also. Hormones have got a bad rap because people think it causes breast cancer. But yet, if your hormones are low, the incidence for cardiometabolic incidence for women, menopausal women, is almost 3 or 4 times higher, including Alzheimer's. So let's look at this journey. I, myself, in opening this clinic, has been on this journey now. It's getting past 3 years. It's a very challenging journey, right? Because every year, I run my diagnostics. How well am I doing? Sometimes I'm not doing well, sometimes I'm doing well, so I'm looking at the balance. But I can imagine if I had not started this 3 years ago, I would be in a very, very bad place right now. As I see when I go to play tennis, most of my friends in the shower, all they're talking about is their last doctor's visit and how many more medications they've been put on. Most Americans are on a lot of medication. And COVID-19 just exposed us with regard to that new word that now most Americans understand called vulnerabilities. But even so, most people still do not understand what vulnerabilities are. These are the things that are indicators of vulnerabilities. Inflammation, oxidative stress, which are the 2 big things that drive all of this. Those are the signals of big issues with imbalances, right? Because the virus and bacteria are around us all the time. You will only get sick because you're vulnerable. That's it. It's not like the bacteria and viruses come and go away. No, they don't. Yes, we may have new viruses, and those viruses attack in the same architecture. They look for vulnerable entry cells. When they come through air or through water, they look for vulnerability, and that's why the first big signs is your lung, coughing, or sensation, or your digestive issues. Because that's where they're looking for. And why do they go to those places? Because those are the places where inflammation shows up very quickly. Why the lung? Because a lot of the air particles we breathe resides captured in the lung and causes inflammation. So the lung cells are already vulnerable. Same thing with the water and the food we eat cause inflammation in the gut lining. That inflammation is a sign for the immune system to show up, but also it creates a weakness in the architecture, and that's where the virus attacks. So it's really important that you reduce your exposure to the vulnerability. And what does wearing mask mean? It helps protect the amount of bacteria and potentially viruses coming in. But the mask is not 100%. If it was, you would not be able to breathe, right? It is not. So if the biological architecture is not strong, then you're going to get sick. And we're walking into a period when we have 3 very dangerous things coming together. Number 1, the flu season is coming, And a lot of Americans die from the flu. That's been the tradition. Secondly, the COVID is mutating. What does that mean? It is changing and getting stronger. Why? Because it is not stupid. It wants to survive. Just like we are mutating and getting stronger. And number three, we are burning the bushes, which is challenging the air quality. And what does that air quality do to us? It inflames the lungs, therefore making it weak and open for attack by the virus. So air quality is a very important, that's why I have these machines that filter the air. You must sleep in a bedroom that has filtered air. It's mandatory, because for the 8 hours you're breathing in your bathroom, you must be breathing pure, clean air. Must. And every time you step into your car, you must put down the windows, because almost everything in your car is toxic. The leather, the carpets, and when it sits in the sun, the toxicity builds in the car, and you step in your car, you know, when they go to the car wash, what kind of smell do you want? Don't put any stupid smell in my car, because it's all cheap bullshit, right? They put that stupid thing and you're taking it in and it's killing you inside, right? If you want cheap, good perfume, then put good quality perfume in your car, right? Not some stupid thing from the cleaners. What scent would you want today in your car? So I'm like, don't touch my car with any stupid scent. It's all cheap and useless, right? But people say, oh, I like the smell of new car. Stupid, right? So we've been acculturated in deep stupidity, and it makes us sick, and then we are looking for somebody to blame. And where does that blame sit? It sits at the beginning, lack of knowledge. When you don't have knowledge, you will pay the price. Very simple. So I'm going to try and do a summary of the things we've talked about today. So laboratory diagnostics is at the heart of transformation. Why? Because it gives you the information for you to take action on. And what is the action? Because the only thing that we need to have, the only thing we need to know, because we really don't know how the biochemistry works, is to keep the terrain, what I call the human terrain, keep it normal and balanced. That's our job. Then the body will do everything that it needs to do. And so we educate ourselves. So you cannot say, I can run away from all these things. We're aging. You have infections. You have allergens. You have nutrients. You have toxicity. You have stress. You have family history. You know, women walking here, I'm having UTI all the time, and oh, my doctor gave me antibiotics. I'm like, no. Why are you having UTI persistently? It's a weakened immune system. Because our mouth and all those places where bacteria lives and that moist always have bacteria. And the harmonization of that bacterial community is necessary for life. So when one kind of bacteria takes over, the bad bacteria, we have big problems. What's the biggest source of chronic illness? Dental hygiene. Your tongue and your mouth is critical, because if you're not brushing your teeth and having good dental hygiene, it is really at the heart of heart disease and chronic illness, because you swallow more than 5,000 to 6,000 times a day, and therefore all that bacteria in your mouth right? You're swallowing all the time. So if your mouth is not clean, as I tell my children, look at your tongue. Your tongue must be pink. That's the color God made it, not white. If it is white, there's too much bad bacteria on your tongue. You need to clean it. If you don't create that bacterial balance in the mouth, as in all the other parts of the body, then you will have these infections. And then the doctor will give you antibiotics, which is actually bad, because what do antibiotics do? They change the ecological balance, the bacterial diversity. And it's a very challenging thing to achieve, especially for children who were born through cesarean. Most of us who have good GI is because we came through the vaginal tract. People who come through the vaginal tract have good bacterial diversity. Well, you know, modern life, many women didn't want to do that, so the doctor cuts it open and the child comes out and did not go through that vaginal tract to get the bacterial diversity that is necessary for survival and for life. And that's why those children always have GI issues. And sometimes they have to implant fecal implants to rebalance their GI architecture. Really important shit, guys, that we need to know. If you don't know, you die, right? There is no thing you show up at heaven and say, I did not know, God. There is no forgiveness for ignorance, right? It's really important that we understand this. And it's not the doctor's fault that you don't understand your labs. It is your responsibility and accountability, because it is your life, not the doctor's life. These clinical imbalances, it's taken us 3-4 years here to really get to the root of it. Why? Because I realized that most of the doctors I was seeing were ignorant. I could complain about them being ignorant, or I could get knowledge myself. That's what we chose, and that's why we opened the clinic. So that we could assemble people who could travel with us in the journey to knowledge, to understand this complexity that God created, that we call life, that we enjoy so much, right? What really drives it, right? I didn't know that circulation was that important. There have been a couple of recent Nobel Prizes, NOx, nitrogen oxide. I'm going to subject all of you to nitric oxide testing, and you'll see whether you have good circulation. Because if the nitric oxide is not at the right level, then you have impaired circulation. Many people don't know that. And if you have impaired circulation, what's happening? The nutrients are not getting to your body properly. Very simple things, right? If you don't know, you don't know, right? So it's important you have knowledge. And then we've built our interventions that everyone has to intervene. You cannot just say, I'm healthy, I'm going to be fine. No. Because these things are affecting you, our interventions are important. Prevention is for people who do not have chronic illness right now. You need to stay on the alert, right? Because the virus is going to come into you and it's going to look for a place of weakness. And if it doesn't find it, then they call you, what's that new interesting word? You are asymptomatic. I know Americans are learning really big English. Oh, asymptomatic, my God, what is that? It means you have the virus, but you don't have the symptoms. That means you can still spread it, right? What a challenging big word. Then now we're learning vulnerabilities. People are like, shit, did they teach us that in school? All these big English, then social distancing, right? Then masking. At first, we used to be angry that Arab women cover their face. Now we cover our face like, oh my God, let me cover my face. So what's the point for God making us look so beautiful if we're going to go around covering it? So we should just like, I have this picture on my Facebook, what happens after 6 months of wearing a mask. You know, God begins to say you don't need your nose and mouth anymore. So it begins to disappear, and then you remove the mask one day and, where did my nose and mouth go? Oh my God, because we don't need it anymore. We just put a filter there. God will give you a 95 filter, N95 filter. That becomes your new nose and mouth, right? So that you can survive the virus. Interesting, right? And then this journey, why do we say 5 years? Because every 5 years, you need to take stock. Because it takes 5 years to really transform. If you want to change your diet, if you want to exercise, if you want to reduce stress, if you want to reduce toxicity, it takes a long time for those to become habits, right? From knowledge to action to habit takes a long time. It's taken me more than 20 years to play tennis almost every day. It takes a long time to build these habits. It's not easy. To go to the gym every day, ask people who go to the gym every day. It takes a long time to build these habits. So it's not trivial. And if you don't have muscle, it's one of the big things why people die, especially women. Most people in the old age die from falling. And why do you die from falling? Because you don't have muscle. Balance, strength, flexibility, right? That's why we do squats. And strength. If you don't have those physical things, you will die early. It's a fact. You're going to fall because you can't stand on one leg and you don't have balance. And we don't see well as we grow older. Misstep. And sometimes it's in the shower, in the bathroom. I always worry when I go into old people's home and I see a bathtub and soap. I'm like, oh shit. If you fall in that bathroom and there's nobody around, what's going to happen? I know it's very little things like that. How many people think about it? Sorry, I'm always thinking. Like this morning I was showering, as I was rubbing soap, I'm like, Charles, gotta be careful. Don't want to crash in this bathroom, right? And then stupidly, they put those floors that are slippery in showers. Sometimes it's like, it's stupid. People are going to fall and die in these bathrooms, right? I know we don't think about things like that. I mean, I didn't think when I was young, but now as I'm growing older, I'm like, wow, okay, I need to be careful. I might fall in this bathroom. And by the time somebody would show up, Vincent, where are you? Oh, if you had come earlier, Charles would have made it, right? You know how the police are always late. The ambulance is also always late, right? So, sorry, that's my nightmare. I fall in the bathroom and they don't find me for 2 weeks. Right? Oh, he was a lovely man, but he died and nobody checked on him. And then all of you will feel guilty because you didn't call and say, where are you? Oh, he wasn't on Facebook. We didn't know what happened to him. All right. So it takes a long time to build the right habits. And what are those habits? There are about 4 or 5 of them. Number 1 is eating well, getting the right nutrition, being aware, buying the right fruits, the right vegetables, eating at the right time, cooking properly, using non-toxic elements. It really takes a lot. Since we're all lazy today, we buy from stupid stores that sell a lot of toxic shit, right? Even farmers market that I'm going to today. How do I know it's really organic? Except I grow it myself. But that's why I ran away from the village. I didn't want to be a farmer. Now they say I need to be a farmer again. It's like, really? Perhaps I should catch a few people and make them farmers. That's number 1, getting the right nutrition. Number 2, exercise. First of all, you can't watch TV and exercise by watching them play 5 hours of tennis. Oh, I was sweating during that last set. You have to go. Like this morning, I was out there, beautiful sunshine. My coach was pounding the balls down, right? You have to exercise. It is mandatory. Number 3, my beautiful thing, which is at the source of illness, sleep. If you're not sleeping 8 hours, you're fucked. I need to use the right word. You're screwed. You must sleep. And not just any time, at night, because of the chronological architecture. You must sleep when the sun is down. So all those people who have night shift work, sorry, when I travel, it takes me now about 4 or 5 days to get the biological clock back into set. You see, we were not born for travel. We were born to stay where we are. But now we brought air travel, and then we travel to the East Coast, is 3 hours behind. And then all of a sudden, all of a sudden, we're like, what is this time zone issue? We were not supposed to be having time zones issue, right? Because when animals migrate, it takes them a long time to move from one time zone to the other. So they're adapting. But we thought we want to go faster. So I fly to Vietnam, 18-hour trip. And I arrive in Vietnam, the clock is what? 14 hours ahead. So my body's like, where are we? Takes a long time to regain, and that causes chronic illness because it upsets the biological architecture. It's a very important research, a Nobel Prize in the last couple of years on what we call the circadian dysregulation. It's a very important issue. So it's important that you sleep at night, right? That was number 3. And what's number 4? Number 4 is toxicity. You must remove the toxicity in your life. You must. And you must make sure that the people you're kissing are not giving you toxic things, right? So before you kiss, you make sure they wash their mouth, wash their tongue. You don't want to take bad bacteria that's going to make you vulnerable to COVID-19. Okay? So kissing itself also is exposing us to toxicity and infections, right? All that bad bacteria. So if you do like the Korean kiss, yeah, or the European kiss where you kiss on the side, no direct kissing, right? You don't want any contact to give you any infections. So then those 4 things, plus the 5th one I always add, which is hydration. Drink a lot of water. Most people who have UTI, part of it is lack of hydration. Most people are dehydrated. You know, every time I used to go to my doctor in Newport Beach, she was a ND. First thing is 1,000 liters, Charles. We're going to give you this full bag. 1,000 ml. We're going to give you a full big bag because everybody is dehydrated. And I remember a big story. I was in San Francisco and I thought I was having a heart attack. I had this pain deep in my back. Went to the hospital, they ran tests, $25,000 worth of it. Didn't help. I came back, I walked into a clinic, I said, I have this pain. You know, I thought I was having a heart attack. Oh, he said, oh, you're dehydrated. I'm like, what? Oh, yes, I'll give you some magnesium, everything. They put the drip, it was gone. I was like, $100. Those guys spent $25,000 messing up. But they're all doctors, they're really smart. I like how my patients love those smart people, they're useless. It's important that you understand your health and understand how God gave us all these natural things to keep us healthy. We don't need all this big bullshit. Natural nutrients to keep you healthy. Thank you for listening and for being here. Thank you.